Time.
On today's episode of Big Time, the podcast, brought to you by our boys at the Landscape Supply Center out there in Herman, Maine, the Russo brothers. Today, we've got a big time show. And that's because we've got our first national champion on the pod. Not just a one-time national champion. I'm talking rings. I'm talking Phil Jackson rings. Maybe not that many, but he's got rings. On today's episode of Big Time, the podcast, Lucas Levesque. Let's go.
I'm on my way, I'm making it. I've got to make it show, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another round of the show we call Big Time, the podcast. Got a big time guest here. We got our first national champion on the podcast, multiple time national champion. I mean, do you count your titles, Lucas? Do you introduce yourself as I don't even know how many championships you got.
No, I don't. I don't even know if I know how many we got. But we had a good run, that's for sure.
So we got Lucas Levesque coming to us on Big Time all the way down there in Georgia, which we'll get into at some point on the pod here, but. We'll just get right into it. So Lucas is a Fort Kent native, correct?
Yes.
Go ahead and describe. I don't even know what neighborhood you grew up on. You're a little bit older than me, so I'm not too familiar with who you grew up with and where. But what neighborhood are we talking about?
Well, all the main streets of Balloon Hill. So, delivering newspapers for 8 years in the wonderful Balloon Hill area, and representing Fort Kent and growing up in the good old rec days.
Yeah. So beyond being like the prime time trick or treat spot in Fort Kent, I'm guessing there was a lot of kids in the neighborhood growing up, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, my brother had more friends his age. I mean, growing up, I think my best neighbor friend was Kyle Robertson. He was a couple years older than me, but Kyle was ultra competitive as I was, and he was about a foot taller than me. So we had many one-on-one battles in his driveway, and I had to learn how to get my shot off against a ginormous kid who was a foot taller and 2 years older. So I honed a lot of my basketball skills playing one-on-one with Kyle Robertson in the day.
So you talked about basketball, but I'm guessing you played a little bit of everything growing up, right? Definitely baseball, definitely some soccer.
Yeah, I played. I mean, growing up as a kid, baseball was kind of. I mean, we were a group that. I mean, Tyler Berthium, Ethan Shabora, Bradley Pelletier, Eric Burby. I mean, Sean Terrio. I mean, we can go on and on. We had a group of about a dozen of us that would, play, tackle football or wiffle ball or basketball, and it's such a different generation. Sometimes we'd play for 3 hours, and sometimes we'd play for 20 minutes. Depends on when the fight broke out of somebody was cheating or somebody did something that they shouldn't have done, and it's like Cartman, screw you, I'm going home. So we play until the fight broke out because we were all super competitive kids. It's a little different nowadays.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like you just didn't have the options that kids have nowadays. So you guys grew up like actually playing outside and playing sports and stuff like that, right? Yeah.
So growing up, baseball was big. I mean, I think by the age of like 15, I needed a rotator cuff surgery from all the curveballs I threw as a kid. But baseball was, pitching was, for me, the biggest thrill, just because you're the man out there, and we played low level baseball, so you either struck out or walked, half the time. So, but we played, hoops was big. Obviously soccer. Once we get into high school, it was a little different because we had such a rich tradition at Fort Kent of soccer. And I think we had at least 12 seniors, my senior year. so we kind of rallied into that sport just because basketball we weren't very good once Ryan and Corey and those guys graduated out of us.
You mentioned baseball kind of growing up, and I feel like for probably most of us in Fort Kent, like baseball was probably the first one we got into, because I think Little League started like third grade, right? I think Little League was like third grade to sixth grade.
Yeah, I mean 9 to 12 summer baseball was the shit back in the day. That was, in the rec department. I mean, I think I coached both you and Sam. Growing up, we had Lon and Paul Marquis as our coaches. So naturally, I became a punk because I was coached and mentored by Paul and Lon. But those were fun days. So, in 13-15 travel baseball. We had an interesting group of kids, that's for sure.
Let's you mentioned the 9 through 12 summer baseball. Let's talk about Little League real quick. Do you remember what team you were on for Little League?
Shop and Save.
Shop and Save. Great uniforms, great team name. I always get a kick out of like who was like the most scary guy to face in Little League, because usually it was someone like who was just bigger back then but didn't really like get much bigger than that growing up. So like who were like the fearful pitchers in Little League?
That was definitely Jimmy Gramazon. Jimmy threw gas. Jimmy is the first person I think in Teague Park history out in Caribou to hit one to the fence and only get a single. Jimmy could really hum the ball back then, and I mean he could. I remember he was the only one that I ever saw hit one to the track from the high school softball field right next to the pool. I mean Jimmy could hit a ball. I would say my best Little League story was probably my dad coached us for 3 years, and after I got thrown out of a playoff game at age 11, he decided that he was going to take my last year off, and me and a different coach, and Eric Burby was throwing rocks. Well, I think we all were throwing rocks, but Eric Burby was throwing rocks at the coach's son, who was in the outfield, and he got hit by one. And the coach just packed up his stuff and said, "That's it, I'm done. Find a new coach. I'm out of here." Eric Burby mostly, but I think me and Bradley Pelletier and maybe Joe DeStew could take some credit for having our coach quit mid-season as 12-year-olds.
Unbelievable. So at this point, so you're playing baseball and other sports growing up. Were you following high school sports at that time? Were you kind of seeing what the programs were doing at that particular moment? Were you going to games and stuff like that?
Yeah, between the university, Murph at the college had a good thing going when we were real young, and certainly at the high school, watching Lon and some of those older guys compete. I remember going to games and watching Lon and Tony Tobin go toe to toe, and these are both like 5'10", fairly quick guards who can just pull up from anywhere, and the final score was like 98-94. So it was fun. I mean, and again, it was such a different era and such a different generation where everybody hated everybody else. That was the fun part. I like being the guy from Fort Kent that everybody hated. I think Caribou was the only team that we really got along with. For some reason or another, Caribou guys and Fort Kent guys, I always kind of had a mutual respect, but we always hated Madawaska and Van Buren and Presque Isle, especially, growing up, and that's what made it fun. That's going to compete against guys you don't like. Now everybody's friends on social media and playing travel leagues together and this, that, and the other stuff. So it's a different but back in the day there always used to be some pretty good rivalries.
Speaking of rivalries, before we get to high school here, let's touch on middle school real quick and people you couldn't stand. So, we played, obviously, St. Francis, Eagle Lake, and there was always a couple teams from Fort Kent. Who were some of the guys from the other towns when you were in middle school that you just couldn't stand and just couldn't wait to play, whether it be soccer, basketball, or baseball back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, I would, Eagle Lake was, I remember in 8th grade, we'd have 2 or 3 teams in Fort Ken, and Eagle Lake would have 1 team. And, you get in St. Francis when we were in 7th grade, because Corey, when Corey was in 8th grade, we were in 7th grade.
Yeah.
There's some good battles there. And, you walk into, all the elementary school gyms were tiny, but it seemed that every time you walked into St. Francis or Eagle Lake, the gyms were even smaller, and, the fans were out. And, it was definitely a unique atmosphere.
Gary Thibodeau stomping up and down the sidelines back then, right?
I mean, the only thing I remember, I think I still wake up hearing it, is give it to Core, give it to Core, give it to Core. I poor guy had to ice his arms after, because he put up 60 shots a game. I mean, not much changed when he got to high school, but it was, and obviously, with a lot of these guys, right from the get-go. I think Brad, it was funny, because when we'd play Wallagrass when we were in 6th grade, 5th and 6th grade, Brad Socia and I used to compete against each other all the time. And, then when we realized we were way too much alike, and, once we joined forces in middle school, but I don't think there was anybody that we really hated, other than, we always felt that we're Fort Kent, we're better. That's kind of the mentality that was always out.
Getting to high school, you mentioned some of the guys that were there before you, some good soccer teams that came before you guys. Your first experience with Coach Minzy here, what was that like?
No, Minz is probably the coach who hit home with me the most. I think he was certainly somebody that, as a player, I would say would be my greatest mentor. Obviously Murph is up there too. I think with soccer, we were really good. And, I think Minz had that little arrogance to him as well that we had as players. Maybe arrogance isn't the right word, but, that expect to win every game, and he was a competitor. And I remember, our senior year, Van Buren won states, and I think we were up 2-0 at the half, and he just reamed us. He brought us to the pool. We knew we were in trouble when he walked over, and he had us go to behind the pool so that nobody could hear what he was saying to us. Yeah. I think he broke one of, his 6 pair of sunglasses that he broke that season. But Minz was a true motivator and a competitor, and I think that kind of resonated with all of us. And soccer had such a tradition from back in the day with Paul Marquis and Charlie Albert and Steve Jalbert and obviously Lon and those guys. You can go on and on with some of the great players that came through, and so we as kids just wanted to continue to follow that. But yeah, I would definitely say that, and Minz is a good reason why I got into coaching.
It seems to be the consensus amongst pretty much everyone I've talked to that's played for him, like either just being like the biggest influence or the best coach that they've had, just someone who could relate to him. And I've heard nothing but good things about Minz.
Yeah. And everything from pre-game preparation and being, that was the one thing where, just little things where, an hour before the game, it was get your game face on and be ready to play. You didn't want to see anybody laughing and joking, and you wanted to make sure you were ready. And that's something that I still, coaching females was interesting, because these girls are dancing and playing with their hair and doing all that stuff. And, I'm trying to get them to understand that, hey, look, you got a job to do. And Minz was really good about, getting everybody riled up and ready to go and take pride in what they're doing.
So you were class of what, 97?
Yeah.
So coming in as a freshman, did you make the varsity team, or did you spend some time down there on the JVs?
Yeah, freshman year for soccer, I basically started as a sophomore, but freshman year played JV, and again, that was, that senior class was absolutely loaded. Brad Courier and Lon and Jeremy Desjardins and Bush was in goal. I mean, they were very deep too, so cracking that roster. But and then basketball and baseball, pretty much everything freshman year was JV. But
So a little bit different back then. You guys had no problem in terms of filling out the rosters and having numbers and putting teams together back then.
yeah, I mean, my freshman year basketball, we had a freshman team for hoops. That's how competitive and how much times have changed. But looking back, we had our 20-year reunion, and we graduated with a class of, I think, like 125, and I think the graduating class in 2017 was 62.
Yeah.
So in 20 years, the enrollment was cut in half, which is crazy. You don't think Fort Kent, I don't know. I didn't ever really noticed. I always thought Fort Kent's population was, roughly the same as it always been. But I mean, it's definitely
going down.
Definitely dwindling.
So freshman or JV team as a freshman. When did you kind of come into your own, like as a soccer player? Like, do you identify more as a soccer player than anything else? Like even in high school, like was soccer more your sport than everything else?
Yeah, I mean, just because when you're a 5'8" guard who's fairly slow and can't defend, basketball you're a little limited. Soccer you can get away with being intelligent and put yourself in the right positions and finding space. But yeah, sophomore year started to kind of get into it and really kind of embrace and commit myself to, and really our whole crew kind of stepped up and got there. And there's a couple I guess the claim to the sophomore season, we were playing in Dover Foxcroft, and it was an overtime game, and I was playing on the right flank, and I went to serve a ball in, and I overhit it, and the goalkeeper kind of stumbled back a little bit, and it ended up going in. And to this day, I mean, I'm still saying it's a shot. I guess I can come clean now, but in the paper it said Levesque's goal in double overtime. So I was Levesque for about 2 years.
That it stuck for a little bit. That name stuck for a little bit.
Yeah, for a bit, and then it just didn't have that cool of a ring to it, so people just let it go.
What'd you guys do sophomore year? You mentioned as a freshman that was Lon's senior year, so you guys make a run your sophomore year?
Sophomore year, we ended up we actually lost in the first round to MDI at home. I think it was in overtime. It was. We didn't have a great senior class that year. We were traditionally, Corey was a junior, Ryan Martin was a junior. We started, I think, 4 or 5 sophomores probably. I think myself, Bart, I think Brad's associate started. There's probably one more. So we were fairly young. I think Richard Plord started. So Richard was a junior. So we started a lot of juniors and sophomores that year. So we think we went in third, lost to MDI as the 6th seed, and that was all she wrote for sophomore year.
So Bart Plor was the same age as you?
Yep.
So you guys had a good class then, soccer player wise.
No. We had a good class. I mean, just in general. I mean, we had, John Meese, John Ned, Bart. I mean, Dave. Brad, Bart. I mean, we can go on and on. We were a really, really close-knit group. So whether it was extracurricular activities, Burt Raymond. I mean, we had a sophomore skip day. We organized. I'll probably take some credit for it. Organized the seniors decided they were going to have a senior skip day, and we're like, you know what? We're going to have a sophomore skip day. And I think we had like 40 kids. I think we went to Tanya Terrio's camp on Eagle Lake, and I think we had like 40 people skip school that day.
Anybody in trouble for that? Were there repercussions for that?
No, a senior year was a different story. That's I got a good story for that one. Senior year, we had Kermit Pooler as our principal, and he put a kibosh to that pretty quick. But sophomore year, we had a good time, and we had a great high school was a good time, I think, for all of class of '97.
Absolutely. So we'll cycle through the soccer years, and we'll come back and we'll talk basketball. So junior year, that's kind of like whenever you might have got playing time before that, but like junior and senior year, that's when the team is kind of like actually yours, and you can kind of leave your imprint and lead and stuff like that. So what happened junior year with you guys? Because you mentioned all the good players you guys had, so I mean, you guys must have been coming into your own at that point.
Yeah, we won our first round game. And I think we went in 3 our junior year. I forget who we beat in the first round, but then we played at Camden Rockport, and Camden was loaded. I mean, they were good. And again, now you look at Fort Kent playing Camden Rockport. Now, I mean, back in the day, we had Camden, we had Ellsworth, we had MDI, we had Orono. There was a lot of big schools in B back then. But we were up 2-0, and then all of a sudden they just got a fluke goal, and they scored 4 goals in a span of like 15 minutes. Ooh. And that was all she wrote. And they were a bunch of punks, but it was one of those things where I think that at that point we kind of were like, you know what, we lost to a better team. As good as we were, they were a little bit better.
Yeah, so I had Tom Pelletier on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how they played a tough regular season schedule, but every year when they make the tournament, they wind up playing a team from downstate where it was just a different level of play, different type of competition and stuff like that, and you could just tell that there was a difference. You guys had a tough regular season schedule, but when it came time for playoffs and you guys were playing these downstate teams, was it just like a different level of competition or just a different style of play?
A little bit of both. I mean, these guys were a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger, and certainly played, Camden and Ellsworth back in the day. I mean, they all had these long throws. I know, matter of fact, I still remember to this day that in that Camden game, they had a guy who threw it directly in the goal. Ellsworth, I'm sure, Ellsworth was notorious for long set pieces and long throws and everything else. But, I mean, they were consistently throwing it back post. And, we were all small. So, we were never I would say the one thing that we really struggled, I think, going back is marking up and defensively, tracking runners. That was the one thing I'd look back and say, we just didn't work on it enough. And to be honest, I mean, we were shorter. We have the French genes where, we were never going to be great on set pieces. And, we got, matter of fact, I think in that Camden game, we at least 2 of them were set pieces. And I know, for those Ellsworth games and stuff like that was always kind of an Achilles heel because they had such weapons off set pieces, and we were just vertically challenged and not great in the air.
Senior year, how many seniors on your senior year team? Was it one of those deals where you guys were like 9 seniors type of thing?
Well, we had at least 12. I mean, we had guys who didn't start in high school who started at UMFK as freshmen. And some really good players. Neil Jondro was another guy I mentioned. Bert A.J. Clavette played with us and started. Bradley Pelletier, John Muse, John Ned, Burb, Dave, Bob, Brad, Tyler. I'm probably missing. Shontario was in goal. We could. God, I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I did, I apologize. I'm old. But we were good. We were really, really good. At times we were a little arrogant. We lost in the first round as a 1 seed, which still hurts. It was October 26, 1996. I still remember the day. But that was one of those moments for me as an athlete where, I'm like, look, hey, if I want something in life, I just got to work hard. I got to work harder for it. You can't, we kind of took things for granted a little bit. And, and I don't think we fought with the grit that we could have and should have. But I mean, we did dominate that game. We just got a little bit unlucky. I mean, I in the second half, our goalie had more shots on goal than their team did.
I was going to say that that game is the first game I can ever remember going to at a high school game. And I just remember, like, I didn't quite know soccer at that point, but I think, like, Sean was playing, like, up out of net, like, pretty much the entire second half, and I didn't quite understand what was going on.
Yeah, it was a windy day, and it's just one of those fluke things where we gave up, just a crossing ball, and I think it banged off a couple of people's shins and went to a guy who kind of toe poked it in, and we're like, oh shit, what the hell just happened? We're down 1-0. And then, dominate, and but that's soccer.
Who was that against? Who did you guys play?
That was Camden as well.
Camden, yeah.
And Camden made a run. They lost in the Eastern Maine finals in overtime to Ellsworth. And I mean, shit, we were, on an average day, we were probably 3 goals better than that Camden team. But the goalie played well. We didn't capitalize, and I think we just kind of pissed it away.
Yeah. Very similar to Charlito's senior year, number 1 seed, just one of those games.
Ton of seniors.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember watching that one too, going, "Oh shit, man, that's the exact same thing that just happened." But that's sports sometimes.
So soccer, some really, really, really good teams. Basketball, you were fortunate too. You got to play on some really, really good teams. So you were 1 year behind Ryan and Corey. So you had some tournament runs in there. Your freshman, sophomore, and junior years, right?
Yeah. So sophomore year, freshman, sophomore year, I didn't play. Junior year, basically, I was the first guard off the bench, and basically it was just a hustle shooter. My job is just to stretch the floor, and I think I shot probably 75% of my shots were threes. Every once in a while, I'd sneak a layup in there to throw things off, but I was just there to jack shots and defend and play with some energy. But I mean, watching Ryan and Corey and Jason and those guys, Matt Thibodeau, Chad Tardy. I mean, Ryan was just so smooth. Ryan was fun to watch, and he's very, very humble. So I think there was times where we wish he was a little more cocky and a little more arrogant, and would play with a chip on his shoulder. But man, he was pretty damn tough.
Were you stuck having to guard him in practice?
I mean, I've never played defense in my life, so I don't really remember who I guarded. But now I was usually that guy that said, "I'll take this guy," who was usually the worst player on the other team.
That's smart. That's why you were a good coach. Like you knew how to pick up matchups and stuff like that.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think this is a classic story too. Eric Gardner and I got into a fight in recess when we were in 3rd grade, I think. Because we both wanted to guard the fat kid on the other team. I'm like, no, I got him. He's like, no way, you go get him. And I'm like, no, I got him. So you talk about a couple underachievers. Like, man, I want the lazy guy. I want the guy that doesn't run. So I think he ended up punching me. It's a good thing I made a steal, and it could have hurt. But yeah, so I was always that lazy guy trying to get out of doing real work, even at a young age.
There's no shame in that. You turn out all right. You got some national championships. It's okay. Real quick, what was it like back then? Obviously, there are some pretty hostile environments in the county, both on the soccer field and basketball, in the basketball gyms. You guys played against a lot of good basketball teams that were good at the time as well. What was it like going into some of these hostile environments? Obviously, I'm guessing Caribou was a crazy environment to go play into for basketball. Presque Isle. What were some of those games like?
You know, I'm trying to think what, I think back in the day, and I never played in it, but I heard Limestone was, matter of fact, Lon's senior year, he got heckled pretty hardcore at Limestone. I got to think that was probably one of the best. Madawaska, it was, I wouldn't say we were ever like, oh man, this is crazy. You're not talking about the Chamber of Horrors like at St. Joe's. I don't really recall any. I remember some huge crowds. Presque Isle Under the Lights was always a big rivalry game, and I remember my senior year. Brad Sussy and I would always say, like, man, if I score in that game, I'm going to do. Very first goal of the game. I remember I played one out to Bart on the flank, and Bart served one in, and I flicked home a header for the first goal, and I beeline straight for the Presque Isle crowd, and I got down on one knee and put my hand in the air, pounded my chest, and made a couple gestures to the crowd, and just that was a fun time, but and they weren't. I don't remember ever getting yelled at or swore at or anything like that. But, Presque Isle Under the Lights was certainly the most fun atmosphere we could play in.
Real quick, the highlight of your high school athletic career could be a goal, could be a game.
That's a very good question. I think basketball. We played Fort Fairfield. I think I put up 35 against Fort Fairfield. I remember one time we played Van Buren, and I think I was scoreless at the half, and I ended up with 23. I think I had like 16 or 18 in the fourth, but that one we lost, so I really can't count that one. But basketball, I was either all or nothing. If I was on, then I would just keep jacking it and would have a big day. And if I was off, I'd finish like 2 of 14 with 6 points. Soccer is just kind of consistency. I actually had a better college career than I did a high school career, just because of the role that I had. In high school, I was playing more on the flanks in our 4-4-2, where in college, I get to play the cherry picker role, and if anybody can steal a goal, it's me.
So you mentioned college here. Let's get into the college recruitment. What was that like? Were you did you have a bunch of different schools coming at you, or did you have an idea where you wanted to go? Or
no, absolutely not. I spoke to absolutely zero college coaches, and I think I applied for college like in June. It was just like, I think I'll just go to UMFK. I don't really know what I want to do. At the time, it was like, I guess I'll play soccer. And to be honest, that was the dark days of UMFK. I'm surprised that we, as an institution, survived the Helene Walls era, because she was the worst coach and probably the worst administrator I've ever seen at any level.
What did she coach? Like, I knew she was the administrator. Like, she used to scare the shit out of me because every time we'd go to the gym or go watch a game, she'd just be mean. But like, she actually coached.
She was the men's soccer coach, my freshman year, and she coached for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And like I said, so Malik was stuck playing for her. Scotty Richardson was a great athlete, and a good player. Ben Collins played on that team. But it was a joke. I remember we lost to Eastern Maine Community College 1-0, and a girl scored their goal. And I think it was at our homecoming. But I'm pretty sure we had half of our team probably throwing up in the bushes during warm-ups because everybody was so hungover. It was a joke. It was an embarrassment. I kind of tell that story half joking, and half just embarrassed. But they
things turned around,
and really, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think we've made strides. I think we've made strides since then at the university. But it was. So my freshman year was there, and then I joined the military. I joined the National Guard, and I'd gotten hurt a couple times. I gotten both my ankles got kind of clipped throughout the season, so I was barely healthy, and basically, I think she kind of labeled me as soft, and she wanted to rah run through people. I mean, we had literally started two guys who never played high school soccer. They were just football players who would just run through people, and she liked that. So then, ironically, the guy who ended up taking over as coach from her was a guy named Ian Gilchrist, and Ian's a great guy. I liked Ian. But he was one of those football guys, and actually I think he was an all-state goalkeeper. I think he was a very good goalkeeper, but he ended up taking over. And so my first year at Thomas, we played them, and we beat them 8-2, and I had 4 goals and 3 assists, and I was like, basically, screw you, you guys kind of wrote me off, and I'll come back and torch you.
Yes, where did Thomas even come to the picture? Did you just decide to transfer and go there, or did they talk to you at all?
Yeah, it's a long story. We basically Bradley Pelletier, one of my classmates, and his uncle Ryan, who was 2 years older than us. Good old Uncle Ryan. But they went to Thomas, and they're like, man, you'll like it over at Thomas. Ryan kept saying, you'll like it over at Thomas. And, they got a sport management program. And by that point, Fort Kent was, it was fun, but I think I needed to change. I needed to get out of Fort Kent because, when you're a local kid staying home, it could be a dead end at times. So I ended up saying, you know what, screw it. Let's go to Thomas. To be honest, when I went to Thomas, I was hoping to make the soccer team. I was like, at that point, I'm like, college soccer, these kids are bigger, stronger. It's a lot more physical. Maybe I can't play at that level. And then when I went to Thomas, we had a Brazilian kid who was just amazing. I mean, he was close to as good as some of the best players that Fort Kent's ever had. So this kid was fantastic, and so he just put the ball wherever. I mean, I'd make a run, and next thing I know, the ball's at my feet. And I'm like, shit, all right. So my first year at Thomas, I had 20 goals. I led the conference in scoring, and we ended up making it to the conference championship. And granted, I mean, the Brazilian kid did 90% of the work, but I was like, all right.
Where were you guys finishing at? Were you guys like middle of the pack, or did you guys make a couple runs? You mentioned going to the championship game your first year at Thomas. You guys ever win a championship down there? Or?
Yeah, so we lost in the finals my sophomore year and my senior year. We lost to Husson my sophomore year, and we lost to my junior year. We lost in the semifinals to St. Joe's, and my senior year we lost to Farmington in the finals. So we, for what we had, we had about 5 legitimate college soccer players. Our goalkeeper was pretty good. He's Kid Ellsworth. Our center backs, our 2 center backs were pretty good. Our center mids were good. Me up front, and then I think every year we started probably same thing, 2 kids who really didn't play high school soccer or played very little, who were just fast and athletic, and who could just serve their purpose. So it wasn't. I definitely wouldn't say we were a high level Division III program, but we did enough to squeak by, and we played in 2 conference championships. So that's probably maximizing our talent.
What did you do following your career at Thomas? Did you kind of know you wanted to get into coaching, or you weren't quite sure at that point what you wanted to do once you got done with school?
Yeah, so my first year, so basically right out of school, I ended up taking a job working for credit card company, which was MB&A at the time, and there was an office in Fort Kent, but that was a outward call center where you're calling people to sign up for credit cards. I worked for like the balance transfer department, so I'd actually call people, offer them promotional rates, and try to wheel and deal and get them to transfer their $10,000 credit card balances over to us, at a low promotional rate. So I liked it because it was kind of wheeling and dealing, a little bit of used car salesman type stuff, but you could help them temporarily, so for some of them we were, it's not like we were shady about it, but so my first year I think I was working like 35 hours a week and I made almost 40 grand, which at the time was pretty sweet, but it got old pretty quick and they started to kind of change the way the incentives work. But I did that for a good year, and then the job at Thomas opened up. So I was going to actually take over the Thomas women's job, but my wife was going to be a senior, so they were like, "Look, we can't really have you coach your girlfriend, so we're going to have the men's coach both the men and the women, and then we're going to have you reapply as soon as the season's over, and basically, wink, wink, we'll give you the job." So that's when I quit my job and I went to Fort Kent to work for Malik as an assistant, and just to kind of get, a little bit more experience and get ready. And so I lived home and I worked with Malik, and at that time, basically, that's when Coach Graffam left. And when Graffam left, Eric took over the men's job, so the women's basketball job opened up. And, they were 2 weeks into the season. So they're like, do you want the job? And I'm like, I guess so.
So that was all happened bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, so Eric was like, hey, man, do you want to be my assistant for women's basketball? And I was like, last time I coached hoops was middle school basketball, coaching, Jared Boucher and Travis Duval and those jokers. And I was like, yeah, man, whatever. If you need help, I'll help out as much as I can. And then obviously that role changed pretty quick when Graf left and Eric took the men's job. So, but that was probably the best thing that happened to me, because that really kind of, got my foot in the door and really, helped me develop, a passion for coaching. And to be honest, when coaching females, I think, for me, I'm better suited. I think coaching females just because, with men, it's a little tougher. Sometimes I'd have to bite my tongue and because there's a lot more egos involved. With females, it's more, trying to get them, to believe in themselves and play up to their potential and kind of build confidence and work that out. But that was so that's how it all started, really, from a coaching standpoint.
Didn't hurt that you pretty much walked into a team that was ready to win a conference championship your first year.
Yeah, that was, without question, the best team, UMFK ever had on the women's side. Eric did a nice job. Obviously between Eric and Graffam bringing in Dana, I think John Page had a big influence there and a contact in Virginia. Julie Clattenburg was a huge piece in terms of, bringing a veteran to that team. Heidi and Melissa Hare. That was a fun group to work with and challenging at time. We went in as the 4 seed. That was the interesting part is, we were the 4 seed and upset College of St. Joe's in the first game and then beat Linden in the finals for the title.
All right, going to get to our first segment of the pod here. It's called Ethan Asks Big Time Questions. Ethan, what is your first question for Lucas?
So I'm not sure if my 7th grade elementary school soccer team was your first coaching gig. I know it was probably one of your first. And we were underdogs that whole year to Travis Delisle's team. And we ended up beating them in the championship by 1 goal. It was a fucking phenomenal game. Neck and neck. It was super intense. Under the lights. The atmosphere was electric. And it was just high school, or it was just elementary school soccer. So Is that what opened the door for you to want to pursue a coaching career? That early success? I mean, are we responsible for you developing into this college powerhouse coach now? I feel responsible.
Great question.
I would definitely say that, those, I do remember, that first group. I think we had Matt Depray, who was a middle school stud in soccer back in the day. And obviously Ethan and Jared and Travis Duval. I'm sure there's a couple others that were key players. I think Mikey Terrio was a good player back then. Those were fun times. Again, I was a 19-year-old kid who, had a lot of experience coaching in the rec. But that middle school, group was fun, and I think that was something that, I'll be honest, after coaching that middle school year, I think I did middle school soccer, middle school basketball, and middle school baseball. It was a fun crew, and that definitely added to my passion for coaching. So Ethan, thank God you won that game. If you guys had lost, who knows, maybe I would have quit coaching altogether.
There you go, Ethan. You can take credit. Let's get to another round of Ethan Asks Big Time questions.
I've done a couple stints in the Southeast. I lived in South Carolina for a year, North Carolina for a year. I've worked all over Georgia, and that place is fucking hot. As a Maine boy, a northern Maine boy, how are you adjusting to that heat down there? Are you going to be able to make it? Is this a long-term thing? I know I only lasted a couple of years, and I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. So are you going to be in Georgia for the long haul, or is this just a stop along the ride? Rome is pretty cool. I think for where we are right now, it's in the northwest part. We do, certainly I was doing great until we hit August and even into September. September was ridiculously hot. July I was pretty cool. June I was fine. July I was fine. Most of August I was fine. But then once September rolled around, I think my body started to be like, what is this crap? I think I can get used to it. I look and it was about 70 something here today, and I think 6 of snow. So that part I really don't miss. I don't miss 6 months of winter. I don't miss being pitch black at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon and in the wintertime. We bought a house with a pool, so that at least helps kind of keep things cool in the summertime. The only bad part is that coaching outside, there's times where it's still 85, 90 degrees at 6, 7 o'clock at night. So it does get old quick, but I don't know. I think the only thing that will probably get me out of Georgia potentially is the itch to get back into college coaching. But for now, I'm enjoying where I'm at, and I'm working for a good organization with some good people.
So first year in the job, conference championship. When did you get the women's soccer gig?
That was the next fall. So that was the fall of 2004 is when we first started coaching soccer. So.
A little bit different for soccer though, right? Because you kind of inherit a basketball team. You get probably the best recruit ever to come to UMFK for women's basketball. In the program's history, you win a conference championship, and then the women's soccer program, you kind of had to build it up from nothing, right?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is that some of the best soccer players and some of the best athletes we had at Fort Ken weren't playing, and that's. Like Nicole Corbin, I think would have been a very good soccer player. Nicole Sirois ended up playing. Nicole Martino, she ended up playing on and off, I think, and she was good. I mean, there was a few very good players, and I know I'm missing a few names, but there's a few kids who were very good athletes who just, I'm not going to play. But that was just the culture. I mean, that was the one thing is, it was hard to get locals to play. And that's why, a kid like Jess Gaia, really paved the way for women's soccer because, she battled through some really tough years. I mean, she had 4 years of a lot of ups and downs and putting up with some just bizarre stuff, I'm sure, to keep the program afloat. And when a lot of kids are like, I'm not going to I'm going to work. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. So I was, trying to convince those kids. I mean, every year you almost had to recruit your team because obviously you didn't have any financial flexibility to make them play. And a lot of them are like, what, I'm not going to play this year. I'm making $20 an hour, waitressing, and I can't afford, not to work. So that was the toughest part, taking over that mentality. And that's why we had to get out of, relying primarily just on Maine kids, because Maine kids, have to work. And, if you can get kids who are coming just for soccer, you didn't need to worry about them wanting to work instead.
So you mentioned kind of switching up the recruiting tactics of the where you kind of like pointed your focus to. Who came up with Canada? Who came up with Montreal? Like, whose idea was that?
I mean, that was basically I went to a coaching course in Massachusetts. I did my United States coaching. It was the National Soccer Coaches of America. I did my national diploma, and it's a week-long course. And one of the guys in my group was the technical director of one of the regions in Montreal. And I'm like, oh, geez, hey, what's going on? So I kind of befriended him a little bit and started to build some contacts. And he was very like, look, I'd like to help you out, but Quebec is very, very territorial, and if they know that I'm sending kids out of our region to the States, I could lose my job. So here's what I'll do is I'm going to give you a couple contacts that I know of coaches who, are really pro, coming to the States, and hopefully they can hook you up. One of the ladies, the first lady that I really met, her daughter played at Fairleigh Dickinson, and she set me up with Mary Pierre, Mary Michelle, and Andrea Baril. And to be honest, I mean, those three, that changed the equation for us. That was the biggest recruiting score, and that was the biggest thing. And to this day, if I get back into college coaching, the first place I'm going is Montreal. The first place I'm going is Quebec. Because it's still, I mean, it's a little more recruited now. There's a group that does a showcase and is starting to really push kids to the States, and they do a very good job. So it's a little more recruited than it was. But I tell you, it's a fantastic level, and those three kids really helped elevate us to where we are today, or where we were. I guess I keep talking like I'm still the coach up there.
Well, what year was that recruiting class?
Oh, that's a great question.
Late 2000s, right?
Yeah, I gotta say like 08 probably.
So when did you step down as the basketball coach? It would have been around the same time, right?
It was 2011, after the 2011 season.
So obviously had all kinds of success with both teams. I mean, how many conference championships for basketball? 5, maybe, right?
Yeah, I think we won 5 out of 8 with from a basketball standpoint, conference championships, and towards the end, but we had some good teams. I think I look back from a basketball standpoint, and that Ashley Ames, Arcilla, Nicole Corbin, April Allen, Dana Lemon. I mean, that team very, very good. We had one year, I think it might have been Amber's freshman year. We had Chris Violet and Ashley inside.
Yeah,
And that
was a good team, too.
that was a fun 1-2 combination. I mean, Kristen was extremely skilled with her footwork and was a very good passer and, you know, a little more polished inside. And if we can, as long as we had an afternoon game and not a morning game, Ashley was usually pretty good.
So at the end of it, was the decision more you just wanted to kind of focus more on soccer and put all your attention towards that, or was it just too much, like just being busy around?
Yeah, I mean, it just got, you know, and again, you could see what we were able to do from a soccer standpoint just by coaching one sport. And then with kids, you know, obviously that changed the equation a little bit too. And, you know, I mean, I remember, you know, from basically mid-August to mid-March, I think I had 3 weekends off. And I was paid absolutely nothing while I was coaching both of those sports. So luckily, you know, I really can thank Bill Ashby for saying, hey, look, you're killing yourself right now, and you need to get out of that. So basically what I did is I moved into the admissions office. I thought I was going to be, you know, there was a time where I thought I was going to just step away from athletics in general, take a break, just do the admissions gig. But, you know, when push comes to shove, I just couldn't walk away from coaching. Plus, we were going to be absolutely loaded, and, you know, I like to win. So that was another reason why I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to get this up yet.
So what year did you guys win your first national championship?
Man, I think the only year we didn't win at 12. So I think 2010 might have been the first one. I think we won maybe in 10 and 11, lost in 12, and then won it every year since. And you know, I mean, after once Damon left, I think the first year where we didn't play Damon in the finals, and that team was filthy, but we beat Albany College of Pharmacy, I think 7-0, and it could have been 10-12. I mean, they basically tapped out, and I'm looking at the scoreboard, and it's like, okay, there's 27 minutes left in the game, and this team's quit. I don't know what we're going to do to keep this score respectable. So, but that was Kat Furlan senior year, and that team was really good. Kat and Yas.
And then not only like were you guys good like at the national level, like obviously this was USCA national championships, but I mean, you guys were good, period. I mean, you guys are playing whoever and anybody in the state and out of the state. You guys are just beating everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, the team, the year I left, they played Delaware State. And granted, the year before, you know, so basically in 2017, they played Delaware State and tied Delaware State 1-1 on the road. And that's a Division I program. Now, granted, that's bottom tier. You know, that's definitely one of the worst Division I programs, but that's still, a funded Division I program. And the 2016 team probably would have beat our 2017 team by 3 or 4. I mean, we lost a ton of players. So like that 2016 team with Sharifa and Jen and, Bree Mills and Mac Carbajal. I mean, that team was absolutely loaded. We played Georgetown, Kentucky, they were number 24 in the country for NAIA at the time. It was blistering hot. It was like 90-something degrees. That was our 4th game in 5 days. I mean, we traveled 24 hours to eventually get to Kentucky, and we beat them 3-0. And we rung a couple off the post. I mean, we could have been up 5 or 6 in that game, and that was a top 25 NAIA team. So I would have loved to have seen what that team could have done, in a major tournament, because we were pretty good. And that was, for me, that was one of the things where I knew after that season, we're never going to get to that level again. We're never going to be as good as that 2015, 2016 team, for a variety of different reasons. But, that was a special a special crew, and really at that point I was like, there's not that much left for me to do at Fort Kent from a coaching standpoint. So that kind of played in. All kind of played into the equation a little bit.
I got a good question for you. What was the bigger challenge during your coaching career? One, getting girls to play and actually feel the full team early in your career, or was a bigger challenge later in your career trying to find teams to actually play you?
Damn, that is a good one. It was a different challenge. And to be honest, I think the second one might have been harder, because the second part of it was, I knew if I can't get teams to challenge us, I can't get kids to stay.
Yeah.
And in California, one of the things that I really ran into, I mean, we lost several recruits because basically kids knew that, shit, your opponent's 126 to 14 last season. So they looked at the website. They knew. I mean, I was intentionally keeping scores down so that A, we could get games the next year, and B, kids wouldn't look at our website and say, oh, they don't play anybody, I don't want to go there. Because I had a couple recruits who flat out told me, Coach, I decided to go to, this Division II school just because I want to be challenged every day. And, I think it's more of an opportunity for me to compete at a higher level. And, she's like, look, your team is unbelievable. But, so I knew, we were geographically challenged, and the better we continue to get, the harder and the more problems we were going to face. So it was, you had to be careful of what you wished for. But I don't miss begging. I don't miss begging kids to play, and that's why for me California made so much sense, because I could talk to a kid who nobody has talked to, who would be an all-state player here in Maine, and she's begging. We had two fantastic starters who played for us from California that didn't receive any athletic aid whatsoever. I mean, we just got them straight up, and I was like, holy smokes, these kids are good, But it was just like, they just wanted a place to play, so that really hit home in terms of, man, this is a gold mine for us. But again, eventually, it's hit or miss. One year we brought in, at one point we had 12 California kids on our roster, and then 2 years later, man, I think I landed one out of like 14 kids that we had applied and were considering us. Right. So some years,
quite the journey.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I look back now and I'm like, man, we did some damage. There's probably the coolest. Bates. We played Bates one time, and Bates just lost at Williams. I think either 1-0 or 2-0, and Williams was number one in the country, and it was a really back and forth game. I think Williams outshot him, but I think they scored late to go ahead, and at the time, I think Bates had given up 7 goals in 8 games, and we were up 5-0 10 minutes into the second half. And Bates is no joke. They were knocking the ball around, and they were solid. It's just, but we'd counter, and I mean, we had some speed up top, and so I think that was one of the games where I think everybody in Maine at that point was like, whoa, okay, they're not just beating up, bad schools. They're legit. Right.
All right, going to get to our last round of Ethan Asks big time questions. Ethan, what's your last question for Lucas?
If I remember right, I think you are a beer dye player. I think I might have actually played against you a couple times. And it's a Fort Kent game. It's a local Maine game. And we grew up playing it, and I'm sure it was there before us. So you've probably had quite a bit of experience on the table. Who is the best beer dye player that you've ever played against or with?
Ethan asking the hard-hitting questions here.
Man, I probably got to lean Lon. I mean, I think when you're always a little younger and you get the older guys tend to be able to drink a little bit more, get a little bit more of a stable liver. So Lon in his heyday could really put some away and could handle himself well on the table. I think man, it's tough to say it this way, but Chad Bushy still a little kind of fucked up with that, but I mean, Chad was really good in his day. So I think those two were prime time players, and again, I think for our group, I think I still have digestive issues in part because of the beer die experience and what we put our bodies through.
So you walked away on top, a handful of national championships. Let everyone know where you're at now. What are you doing now? You're obviously no longer in Maine.
Yeah, so took a job basically running. I'm the director of coaching with the Arsenal Rome Soccer Club. So it's a soccer club. We have in our travel program, we have basically about 330 kids. We have another probably 500 that play in our rec leagues. We have like a 52-acre soccer park, and so it's cool. Rome's a really, really nice area. One of my goals in life was to wear shorts and flip flops the rest of year round and the rest of my life. So I've been able to kind of cross that off the bucket list. But Rome's a city of about 40,000. I mean, we're big time here. We got 2 Walmarts. So it's a really nice, close knit. It's everybody. I don't want to say everybody knows everybody, and everybody talks like it's a small town. And I'm like, you haven't seen a small town until you've been to Fort Kent, Maine. But it's a good gig. It's a good area. And for me, it's kind of refocusing me, and I kind of did things backwards. And I kind of jumped up and started coaching collegiately. Now I'm kind of going all the way back and learning how to coach, young players. And I'll admit it's a challenge. I'm coaching my daughter's 2007 girls team. So I'm coaching a U11 girls team, and I'm like, okay, no, I can't work that way. You got to learn how to communicate with and simplify the game more than what you've done at the previous level. So,
and in the meantime, though, since you've been down there, also got inducted, right? UMFK called you back, got inducted into the Hall of Fame as well, right?
Yeah. So that was that was nice. It was great to be back. I mean, Fort Kent's always home. I still follow the team. As a matter of fact, the team came down to Rome and played. They actually played at our soccer complex. They played a shorter university and got a nice win over a Division II school. So it's good to see see the kids here in Georgia, get them a chance to experience the South a little bit. But the Fort Kent's still a big part of who I am, and I'll never forget the roots. And who knows what the future holds. But for now, I'm enjoying my time here in the South.
Absolutely. So we're gonna get to our serious part of the pod. It's we don't have a sponsor for the segment. Season 3, folks. We're still looking for sponsors for some of these things. Come on, maybe this youth club that Lucas is part of can step up, sponsor a segment. But the segment's called "When You Die, What Jersey Do You Want to Be Buried In?" So it could be a jersey from your playing days, could be one of your track suits from your coaching days. Which one means the most? Which one are you taking to the grave with you?
I'd probably say it would be the UMFK Bengals Under Armour coaching jacket. I think my coaching days mean more to me than my playing days. I think being able to look back and see I'm hoping that every kid that played in our program looks back and say, you know what, man, I had a kick-ass time at Fort Kent. I really enjoyed my time in Maine, and hopefully everybody has fond memories of their other days. I think think we won a ton of games, and I think we had a ton of fun. And but yeah, I'd definitely go with the good old Under Armour coaching jacket.
Solid choice. I'm gonna get to our sponsored segment of the show here. Charlito Wonders, brought to you by the good folks at Rock's Family Diner. Real quick, Lucas, what's your go-to meal at Rock's?
Man, I never really got into the whole. I was more of a 1 a.m. Greco guy.
Okay, yeah.
But if I had to go Rocks, I'd probably go, straight out cheeseburger with a large fry. Even the mixes, I wasn't overly impressed with. So I just go generic, man. I go straight out cheeseburger with ketchup and a large fry.
Can't go wrong with anything from Rocks. All right, Charlito, what's your question? What are you wondering today?
Yo, Lucas, what up, man? It's Charlito out here in Halifax. A little bit out of breath at the gym. The place where people go to lift weights. I don't think if you've ever been there. But, yeah, what kind of workouts do you like? What do you, how do you get that physique of yours? What's your favorite workout? Least favorite workouts? All right, man. Hope life's good. Thanks for dropping in the podcast. Peace out, bro.
I wonder if I'm hoping he was really asking that question from the gym, because I don't know what else that noise could have been if he was at his house. But
I could barely hear him. I mean, I think anybody who has seen my physique and who knows me knows that I only have one workout routine, and that's the 12-ounce curl.
Can't go wrong with that.
Never got into the whole lifting weights things. I mean, some of that iron's pretty heavy, and that's not my style. So, I was pretty lazy from a workout routine, and so Charlie, I expected some hardcore, like, super backstory question.
Well, he's got a part two. He's got a second question, actually. He's coming
all right.
back.
Well, I'm hoping the second question's better. I was a little disappointed with the first, but when you move to Canada and all you watch is curling, I mean, what else do you expect?
All right. What's your second question, Charles?
Yo, Lucas, what up, man? It's Charlito again. Still at the gym 2 hours later. Just wondering, your days Thomas Soccer versus UMFK Soccer. We shut you down pretty good. Was it the nerves of playing against your hometown, or was it just my superior defense? All right, bro. Take it easy. Peace out.
There you go. That's a good question.
Yeah. Now, Charlie must have a short memory, and I hate to make excuses, but I got cracked the game before, and I really shouldn't have been playing. I think I should have probably taken a couple weeks off, but we were playing at UMFK, and there's no way I wasn't playing in that game. So Charlie can be thankful that some douchebag from Mount Ida decided to 2-foot me after I was running my mouth at him. That was a game where I scored twice, and this guy was marking me, and everywhere I went, he went, and I'd already scored twice, and I'm like, dude, just get away from me. You're not doing your job. I've already got 2 goals. You suck. Just find something else to do. I went to take a shot, and he slid 2 foot, but spikes up. I thought I broke my leg. I went to the hospital. I thought I broke my leg, but it was just a high ankle sprain. So Charlie's claim to fame is that he shut me down and all of this other stuff. But I still did my job. I was a decoy. I drew some defenders away. We ended up winning the game. So Charlie can say what he wants. He can. I don't know what kind of hair he was. I know he was pulling the Carlos Valderrama fan club with that weird, goofy, curly hair shit. But he can pretend that he won that battle. But had I been healthy, I was good for at least 2 that day.
That's good. That's good stuff. Great question, a great answer. All right, so that's going to do it. So just want to thank Lucas for coming through, doing big time. Lucas, you're a big timer for sure. I mean, you've won at every level. You've got national championships. Like I said, our first national champ on the pod. So thank you for coming through. Is there anything you want to say before you get up out of here? Anything you want to plug or anything you want to kind of make aware to the people out there? Not
really. Just I don't got a whole lot to add. I appreciate you having me, and obviously it's been cool to listen to, some of the all-time greats that have blessed our community, and it's good that Fort Kent and Fort Kent athletics has a voice to bring back all the good memories that our community's had.
Absolutely. Well, once again, thank you for coming through. Make sure to go and check out all of our older episodes that Lucas was just referring to on iTunes and on YouTube. iTunes and YouTube. Check them out. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. We'll check you out next time.